Oh, well, welcome back to Trojan Corner. The Kamenetzky brothers. I'm Brian Kamenetzky. That's Andy Kamenetzky. You just heard Pat Haden on the comfortable couch-laden side of the stage.
And now we're going to make him stand.
That's exactly
that was
right.
Beautiful over there. Beautiful.
It is nice. It's like MTV.
Yeah.
Of course, the athletic director here at USC. I want to ask you a question here because we saw last week with Matt Barkley 300 yards and Robert Woods 17 receptions. How hard would it be for those guys to win the Heisman? Do you think there's anything that would be held against them because USC can't go to a bowl this year?
That's an interesting question, and probably it'll be held against them. But it's so early to be talking about that now. Let's let them have a few.
That's what we do.
That's what we do.
I know. But everybody wants to race to vote for the Heisman in Game 1. They were spectacular. Did anybody play better than they did in Week 1? Probably not. Let's hope they have another great game today. It's hard for a receiver to do it week in, week out, but we've got a really special player in Robert Woods.
Well, it also could be, on the flip side, a nice way maybe for the committee to really demonstrate that they're not holding the situation with USC against a guy like Matt Barkley, who truly had nothing to do with it.
Well, I actually voted for the Heisman for about 25 years until last year when I became athletic director. I wasn't eligible to vote anymore, and I don't ever recall ever seeing any literature that said if a team were on probation, you couldn't be voted for, right? Or couldn't win the Heisman. So, but you have to win it on the field, and it's, as I said, it'd be a wonderful, wonderful thing to talk about. I think we ought to really be talking about Matt coming back next year and winning the Heisman Trophy.
Well, then he could win it 2 years in a row.
That would be nice.
When Matt defends his Heisman next season.
What do you see a difference in Lane this year as opposed to last?
Well, I've gotten to know him better over the last year, and I really appreciate Lane Kiffin. I think the perception and the reality of Lane Kiffin are two different things. The reality that I know, he's been incredibly compliant. Nobody works harder than he does. He has his kid's best interest in mind. Now, he can say things like he did after the last game, when put his foot in his mouth and apologize, which he did. It was unintended what he said. He loves his kids. He cares about those kids. But I tell you, the guy is so incredibly focused on winning. That's what you want as an athletic director. Sometimes that focus really kind of consumes him, perhaps too much.
How has your guys' relationship evolved?
It's great. Oh, how has it evolved? I knew Lane a little bit when I came last year. I'd already been hired, of course. Knew he was a great play caller during those great years that USC had under Pete Carroll, but didn't know him terribly well. But over this past year, as I said, I've really come to appreciate him a lot more. I think he's a very good play caller. People will, I know, disagree with that, but I do have some street cred because I called plays for 15 years or so. He really sequences plays well. I know he's a great recruiter, but he's a young head coach, and he's got, this is only just his second year here as our head coach. We're going to give some time to really get this thing going.
Is this job what you thought it was going to be?
Some of it is what I thought. Some of it's not. But it's been a blast in most ways.
Highlighted by this, I would assume.
Oh no, this is the
happening
best.
right
this
now.
This is the absolute.
You would have
best
never
I've
been
had.
up on this stage had you not have been named athletic director.
This is good stuff.
It is. No, hey, I love being here.
Right.
Matt Barkley, going back to him for a second, you were Phi Beta Kappa at USC, magna cum laude, went along to this little school called Oxford that I've heard excellent things about. Beyond Matt Barkley as a quarterback, what does it mean to you that he's a good student as well?
Well, Robert Woods is too. Robert Woods, he's an accounting.
True.
He's an accounting major.
True.
I mean, how many wide receivers are accounting majors? I know none. And Matt is a terrific student too. We have a bunch of them. I tell you what we're really proud of. We had 111 senior student athletes last year. Some left. Some guys left and transferred. I'm not counting those guys. The people who stayed, 111 all our sports, 105 have graduated. Or will graduate in this January. It's 95%. I mean, so we can be great, have great athletic teams, and really push the achievement gap between our student athletes and our general student population. I think we can close that gap.
What role do you have? Sorry, Brian, what role do you have as athletic director in trying to make that happen? Because as we said before, academics are very important.
It is really important to me. It's really important to us, and it's really important to all our kids' mothers. Every one of our football players promised their mom they're going to graduate. And I tell every one of our freshmen, do not disappoint your mothers. It's the worst thing you can do in life. And so we have a plan now for our kids to come here and be #1 draft picks and leave early and still graduate in 3 or 3.5 years. We can do that. We're on track to do that right now with this freshman class.
We can't let you go without asking this. You are not just an athletic director. People forget you also played a little football here. There are people who consider the 72 team, the national title team, perhaps the greatest ever. Would you agree with that assessment of that
It's
team?
really hard in eras to compare eras. I know nobody in our team in 72 could have tackled Reggie Bush or covered Dwayne Jarrett or defended Matt Leinart. You know, we had an awfully good team in 72. We blew out virtually everybody and kind of really ran the table. Nobody really kind of came close. And I think ultimately of that team, I think there were ultimately 15 first-round draft picks if you went through the 3 years. So that
not
was
bad.
It was a pretty good group.
What made John Mckay special as a coach?
I think the best thing about Coach Mckay was he could see a kid in his first day of practice. I might recruit you as a linebacker, but in the second day you were a tight end and you ended up being an All-American tight end and a #1 draft pick. Or you're a wide receiver, made you a safety, or he made you a linebacker that might have been a tackle. He just had this great view of talent and where to kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together to create great dominant teams.
Do you think that's more understanding of football or imagination?
That's a very good question. I think it's more imagination than really understanding football, because he just had this, he would see a guy really for just a couple days, and the next thing you know, he'd be in a new position, and 2 or 3 years later, that person would be.
Were you ever concerned about one day being the starting safety or anything like that?
I wasn't fast enough or big enough. I couldn't play, too small to play quarterback.
Nobody is that imaginative. Is
Yeah,
what
exactly.
you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there a template? Is there a template for being a great coach?
That's a good question. I think being around other good, as you work your way up in this profession, that's generally how it works. By the time you get to USC, you've kind of worked with other great coaches, being in programs that have had success, in different kinds of success, maybe different conferences and such. I think it's probably a template. For us at USC, it would be hard for us again to take the leap and hire a coordinator. We would want to see a great coordinator go somewhere and have a great 3 or 4 or 5 years before we came to SC in virtually every one of our sports.
Well, we know you have a lot on your plate
Exactly.
today, a lot to do today, so we really appreciate you coming
delighted.
by, doing both sides of the stage here.
Anytime. In between the two statutes. This is perfect.
Could be worse, that's for sure. Pat
Thanks.
Haden,
Appreciate
Athletic
it, guys.
Director, USC, thanks so much
Thank
for
you.
coming by.
Thanks so much, Pat.